You said make the trades. Marchand?
No.
You don't trade Marchand?
No.
I do. Don Sweeney said on Sunday that Hampus Lindholm is out for the season, likely. He has been dealing with a knee injury, and I'll tell you what, there are a lot of Hampus Lindholm haters out there. I am not one of them. You can think that he's not the greatest defenseman in the world, but he was definitely one of the best defensemen in the NHL 2 seasons ago. I do not dislike his contract. I don't really dislike too much about Hampus Lindholm. He hasn't been what he was, but at the beginning of this season, he was off to a good start. He was one of their better players. They have missed him. He's in the third year of an 8-year deal with a $6.5 million cap hit. He is a big part of what that team is. With him not coming back, and he had been skating, with him not coming back, I want to get to something that Megan Ottolini brought up the other night. I was doing television at NBC Sports Boston, and we were talking about the Four Nations face-off stuff, and she said, does Charlie McAvoy being out indefinitely give the Bruins the excuse to basically declare themselves sellers, start selling now, and say, well, what do you want? The Wild Doctors messed up our team. You can't get mad at us. You can't fire us. Everyone wants the Bruins to sell anyway, so no one would be mad if they did sell. But I think the front office has raised an interesting question. Like, should the front office feel like, ooh, we might be safe here. We've got a scapegoat, so let's just do it.
Unfortunately, I think the answer is probably yes. Like, there is enough reason now to be like, and I think if you pay close enough attention to this team and no puck, like from the start of the season, you're like, okay, this team clearly has its warts, clearly has its issues. But as the season's gone on, they've also been struck with some bad luck with Lindholm and McAvoy now. I think it gives the front office enough of a reason, if they didn't have one already, to be like, okay, this is not going well. We are not in a good position here. And like Sweeney's comments mentioned, they're not going to be aggressive. That signals to me that they are acknowledging, waving the white flag a little bit. If we make the playoffs, it's not going to be because we bought at the deadline and bought for our team. I do think it gives them more armor than I think they deserve, but I still think it gives them some armor.
Sean, do you have any of the Sweeney stuff? Could you play the clip of him just talking about the deadline?
I think we'll take a much more cautious approach as we approach the deadline. That being said, if there are opportunities to improve our team now and certainly moving forward, whether that's positional shifts or other teams are trying to identify that we may have a strength at, we will look at all opportunities to improve our team now, but more importantly, even moving forward.
Meaning trading away players and trading in players potentially?
Yeah. I mean, it's just stuff that happens during this period of time, and it may plant a seed for the draft and beyond.
I don't say this often. Good job, Donnie.
Yeah.
Good answer. Like, hey, so you mean you would trade guys? Yes. And he doesn't know. Maybe he does know. Maybe he knows that he's safe, and maybe that would be more reason for him to feel comfortable selling. But when you're talking about the draft, and nobody else invoked the draft. He brought up the draft. When you're talking about the draft on Sunday, February 23rd in the United States and Canada, it means that you think you're a seller. So when he's trying to set himself up to do things at the draft or make moves or add in free agency, yes, selling.
My only problem, like, I agree, good comments. I don't want Don Sweeney to talk about the draft ever. No, Don Sweeney.
Dude,
not allowed to talk about the draft.
I was thinking about this because I saw somebody say, and it may have just been a reader or a commenter. I don't know why I still say reader. I haven't written in 1,000 years. But somebody said, well, the reason, is the great Joe Murray of 98.5 The Sports Hub in Boston. He noted the reason the Bruins are in this position is because they kept buying at the deadline and trading their first round picks, which they should have done because they had the best regular season team ever. They should have done it, but now here is where the chickens are coming home to roost. And to that I say, knowing what happened, I still would have traded those picks because at least we got some fun time watching Dmitry Orlov and Tyler Bertuzzi, because my assumption is they would not have hit on those picks. So when the Bruins do refocus and try to start drafting, honestly, trade up every round if you can. No matter what, just move higher and take whatever central scouting says is the next best guy. Do not put any of your own thought into it. If you end up with the 13th overall pick, trade to 9 and take the 9th best player.
Disagree.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
It's a weak draft. That's the reason I wouldn't do it.
Okay. But normally, just take your own thinking as far out of it as you can. Don't get creative. Don't have a guy that you like that has more upside. Just go in order. And I understand that was Jakub Zaboral, but take whoever the other people say is the best player.
My counter to that would just be get a better scouting department. Their scouting department has clearly led them astray.
They're not going to do it, though.
They should. You're talking about things they should do.
Yeah.
They should get a better scouting department.
Yeah,
That's what they should be doing.
With me. Just chalk. just go chalk.
I mean, yeah, sure. If you're not going to get a better scouting department, don't go off your own scouting who has led you astray, is what I'm saying. Like, you got to go one way or the other. And as a Bruins fan, heading into this trade deadline, I agree with you saying that I don't regret what they spent to get in years past because they had a window and they were going for it. And yes, now you're in a position where you don't have any cups to show for it and you put yourself in a bad spot. But that's the risk that you're taking. I'd rather them do that than be the Carolina Hurricanes where we believe in our group, Carolina Hurricanes before these past couple seasons where they're just not making any big shakes and they fall out anyway. Where I'm at right now is if they can use this deadline to get not only sell, but sell for guys who are going to factor in beyond this season, that's what I want to see. I want to have a better idea in the second half of the year as to what this team is going to look like next year versus what it was in the first half.
They have a big one tonight against the Maple Leafs at home, which, Sean, you noted. Game Time is basically saying, you free?
Yeah, it was I'll check again, but last time I checked, it was $51 get-in price. 55. 54 now.
You
That's
could not
all
get
in pricing.
You could not get a pretzel at Four Nations for $51. That's how buzzing it was at the Garden. Interest is low, but that's a little side tangent. So you said make the trades. Marchand?
No.
You don't trade Marchand?
No.
I do.
I'm still not there. And Marchand reiterated he doesn't want to go anywhere. We'll see if that makes a difference. But you gotta start working on a contract with Marchand.
So that's why how is that not done? It's usually done before the season starts. So if I've said all along, trade him and sign him back. Try to do that. There's a lot of risk in that because I think that once he gets out there and if he goes to Dallas, if he goes to Colorado, he's going to go a lot further than he was going to go in Boston. And he is going to find, hey, playing with X is really, really great. And maybe it becomes a Jerome McGinley situation where the intention is always, yeah, we're going to keep this guy. And then it gets to free agency and there's just, the grass is just too green. The money's too good. And he just has to go. That's a risk for the Bruins, but I want, and I don't know if Brad Marchand wants this, but I just want him to win and stay competitive. And right now with the Bruins this season, that's not happening. So I hope for him, my dear, sweet Brad, set you free.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I also think that this year may not matter. 1 year may not matter that much to Brad Marchand. And I think that by trading Marchand, you're indicating there's a reset versus a retool.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Bruins are willing to do that. And I don't think that Marchand is going to be so upset by missing the playoffs 1 year that he would bail on Boston.
Yeah, the captaincy element of it is what's tricky too.
And who's behind him is what I made that point before. Who do you have for leaders on this team behind him?
Oh, great question.
It's got to be McAvoy, right?
Yeah, he's but honestly,
different kind of
that's
leader.
McAvoy has a Rasmus Dahlin energy to him, where he's just kind of the next guy in line, lead by example, but not necessarily who's the vocal leader.
Yeah, and I think McAvoy's a leader, but I
trade for Corey Perry.
What is McAvoy won? And
second place in Four Nations, kind of.
Yeah,
people forget that.
I just think that there is
Silver
a
medal.
noticeable lack of leadership on the Bruins roster right now. And by trading your captain and the clearest leader on this team, you're really putting yourself in a position where this could take a while to get back to being a very good team.
Yeah, and getting back to Marchand's side of it, I don't know if he wants to not wear a C anymore. I mean, he worked really hard to get there. I know that takes so much freaking pride in that job. And not to throw any other captains under the bus, but some guys are captains because they're the best player on the team, and some guys are captains because they eat it, sleep it, breathe it, drink it. And Brad Marchand is the latter. Like, he is an extension of ownership of this team. He has it so deep within him. Morgan Geekie. Yes.
What?
Trade.
Yes. If you're not going to get a deal done, like, it's not, I would consider both options. If you can get a deal done that you like, I would absolutely be interested in keeping him. He's shown versatility. He can play up and down the lineup. I think he's a gamer. I think that guy plays a very hard style, and the Bruins really like that, and I really like that. But he's also a player that would definitely have value to a contending team on the bottom half of the roster. And if you're not loving what it might take to keep him on the next contract, trade him.
Trent Frederick, obviously.
Definitely.
Love you, bud. And then there's the defenseman shuffle. We talked about it earlier in the season. Call Edmonton, say, we'll give you Carlo now, and we'll talk in the offseason about Evan Bouchard.
Yeah, and I'll also, like, if Mason Lohrei can get you a nice forward piece, I would definitely consider that as well, because I am not sold on Mason Lohrei.
Never
I think that he could be a fine NHL defenseman, but not somebody who is going to, like, climb to your top pairing or be, like, I don't know. I'm not going to say you can't be a second pairing guy on a good team, but there's just too much to not like about his game right now.
I know that all the players that I just presented, I said, okay, yeah, I'm cool with moving those guys. Geekie is the one for me, because we talked about him before, where my biggest hesitation with moving him is you just don't have a lot of forwards. And if you're going to get, I don't know what you would get back for Geekie. Him, I would have it depends on what I get back. And it also, of course, depends on what I get back for Brad Marchand. But I think that you would get a good return for Carlo. And I think that it would set you up to make a bigger splash in the offseason. Geekie, though, I would also kind of do the Marchand thing of trade him and try to revisit in the offseason, because he's really turned into what we were hoping he would be in the NHL in Boston. But if you can get something substantial for him, and I don't mean like a bunch of first-round picks, but if you can get a decent draft pick for him, you need to restock the cupboard. And the restocking is going to be its own problem down the road, but you cross that bridge when you get to it. If you come out of this season a disappointing year saying, look, we've got some more young players, we've got some picks, and the cap's going up, so for as upset as somebody might be with the Elias Lindholm contract, it's going to be fine. Like, you need him to be better than Charlie Coyle, which isn't really the case, but going forward, the Bruins could be in okay shape for a retool if they just grab a few little things to add to their ammunition once you hit the offseason. So the biggest question is whether they've been given the green light to sell. And all of this on Sunday from Sweeney suggests that they have.
Yeah. Chat hates that I suggested they should trade Lohrei. I think Lohrei's I wouldn't ruch trade him.
That would be a hockey trade, though. You're saying,
right?
Like, that would be. We have a young defenseman. Let's get a young forward.
I would value and covet a young forward who can potentially slide into the top 6 than a young defenseman who could potentially slide into the top 4, given what the Bruins already have.
Yeah, we're talking about it from the perspective of the Bruins, but this is a situation so many teams find themselves in, where they're fringe playoff C, and do you stand pat? Do you do nothing? Do you keep building what you have, or do you move some pieces off and try for it next year? The Bruins aren't in the process of building something right now, is the difference between them and a Columbus, who's also a fringe playoff team. Like, those sorts of teams, you say, look, if you want to stand pat, that's fine. Your guys are going to get experience. Right. Hopefully you can get them into the playoffs. If not the end of the world. The Bruins, this isn't phase 1 of any sort of project. This is like phase 9 of the last project, and that's winding down. So position yourself to pivot in the offseason if you can.
We all silly like the mayor.